There are some people that you meet in life, if even briefly, who are just true lights, who are genuine, who are sincere, who are so warm and welcoming that there is no other way that you can explain them. And that is how I'm explaining this person, or at least describing her to you. Diane Wyzga is our guest today. And oh my, does she help you bring out your story and so much more. This is an episode that you want to hear, pay attention to, and apply what she teaches us in your own life. Everyone's story is unique, and everyone's story has power. So let's prepare for Diane Wyzga on the Power Transformation Podcast. Have you ever faced a challenge that seemed hopeless, yet you think that you have the power to change your life for the better no matter the obstacles you face? Well, if so, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Alethea Felton, and welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast, where we explore the incredible true stories of people who have overcome adversity and created meaningful lives. So, prepare to be inspired, equipped, and empowered, for the time is now to create your power transformation. Hey, y'all! Welcome back for another episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. Oh, today's guest is going to definitely be someone who is going to inspire you because, y'all, she helps people with their stories, and she does a lot more than that as well. And as you heard me say in the intro part of this, she's a light. But I want to go ahead and jump into this episode. Thank you so much for people who have followed me from day one. And if you are new to the Power Transformation Podcast, welcome. I always begin with an affirmation. We're going to jump right into that affirmation now. Say it aloud. I'm going to say it once, and then you repeat it. My voice is powerful, and because of that, I am created to do great things. I am so thrilled today to have such a beautiful guest inside and out, and that is none other than Diane Wyzga. She is beyond simply a storyteller, but she is an origin story co-creator. She helps people make so much meaning and clarity out of their own stories, but I'm going to get her to articulate that even better in a few. But first of all, I just like to say welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast, Diane.
Thank you very much. I am delighted to be here, Alethea, and I can feel myself being transformed already.
Oh, thank you. That's so lovely. That's so lovely. So I want to jump right into this interview. And I always ask guests just a random question starting so that we can get to know you better. And this is the question that I have for you. It's kind of connected to what you do now, but a little different. Diane, when you were growing up, what were some of your favorite stories or genre of story? Or is there one story that you heard as a child that you absolutely loved? And what was it about that story that you just loved?
Oh, I will tell you, that is a great, great, great question. I have always loved the Pippi Longstocking series. It
Oh,
is, it is I think it's a Danish woman author. There's actually a good documentary movie out there about her. But Pippi Longstocking, as you know, and maybe some of your listeners don't know, was a young girl. I want to say 9, 10, 11. She had carrot colored hair and braids, and she lived on her own with a horse that she kept on her porch. Her father was a sailing captain, like a sailing captain out on the seas. And she had two friends. They were a brother and a sister. And the three of them were always getting into all sorts of adventures. In fact, in one story, she actually goes out after her father, who's been kidnapped by pirates. And so, and I will, I read that, I read those books when I was getting ready, studying for the bar exam, just because it was so courageous and so encouraging. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's an absolutely great set of books.
I'm so excited you said that because I read the books, but
Hmm.
also there was a movie made, I want to say in the 1980s, and I
Hmm.
watched that movie. But what I loved about her too is both of her pigtails flipped up in the air.
Yes.
And that was fun too. That was a lot of fun. Pippi Longstocking.
Yes.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
I
Great
think
role
I'm gonna
model.
have to find it again, maybe on Audible. And then that way I'm listening to it and everything. Oh, that's exciting. What a
That's
great
the
way to
best way to
start.
go. Yeah.
Hmm. So, Pippi Longstocking to now you as Diane Wyzga. If you were to describe yourself, who would you say is Diane Wyzga?
Oh my. You know what? There are elements of me that are in Pippi. And
Mm,
I did a podcast episode about this a little while ago. There's a story in my family. I was the firstborn, so I'm the first of seven children. And when I was transitioning from diapers to, I think they call them pull ups now or little girl unders,
mhm.
I did not want to sit on the little girl pot. There's no way. I wanted to be up there on the big human's porcelain throne. And that was all there was to it. And my mother, because the children in the family are about 18 months apart, I'm sure that she was just beside herself and said, fine, do what you want, do what you want. And if you fall
Mm.
in, that's on your head too, which, is kind of literal. But that little story, I think, is emblematic of what's inside of me. That sense of, I want to do it myself. I know what I'm doing. I got my own way of doing it. And what's important about that is over time, like I imagine other women, your listeners here, and men too, that voice gets compressed or squelched, and that inner adventurer, that I can do it, I know how, I'm going to challenge myself, I'm going to climb up there, happens less and less and less. It's not gone. It might be misplaced or lost for a time, but
Mhm.
that sense of what we are capable of. So I think that is an indicator of what the spirit is in me. And the other thing that I wouldn't have been able to say years ago, but as it happens, we live our lives looking forward and we understand them looking backward. What I understand is that my work has been about overcoming or pushing back on injustice.
Mm.
So whether it was in nursing or in business or in law or story work, that theme of helping others be seen and heard and understood and listened to has always been important. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have said that if you had asked me a time ago,
Mhm.
but today I recognize it. And I think that it's part nature and it's part nurture
Okay.
because ironically, my mom's in there.
Mm. How is your mom in there?
Oh, good question. Well, like other women growing up in her generation, she had places to go and things to do. She
Mhm.
graduated Phi Beta Kappa. She was the
Oh,
valedictorian of her college class, and she was on her way to medical school. She wanted to be a surgeon, and then she met my dad,
wow.
and they decided that they would have a dozen children, which was kind of insane because my mom
Mhm.
was an only child and my dad was the youngest of about a dozen, meaning he had lots of brothers and sisters to take care of him. And so her life pivoted from the place that she thought she was going to a different place. However, those ideas and those dreams did not stop. She went on to teach math and science, and there's four girls in the family, and each one of us is a soul practitioner in our own way.
Mm,
And it was a family joke, but my dad would come home with the ideas. Well, how about if we do this? How about if we do that? And my mom would be the implementer. Okay, well, we've never been camping before in our entire lives, but let's give it a go.
mm.
Okay, we've never done this before, but let's give it a go. And it's her spirit, that sense of let's give it a go, that I grew up with.
Oh, and that's a good segue to this next question about let's give it a go. You help people give it a go, so to
I
speak,
do.
when it comes to them sharing their stories. Now, when I said that you are an origin story co-creator, Diane, let's start that journey. Tell us what exactly is that and how do you go about doing that? What even led you to that place?
There are many roads that led there, and I think we've walked a few of them so far in these great questions that you're asking me. The origin story, as I see it, is the story that is probably the most significant or consequential in our life. It is the story that says, this is how I got from there to here. All of the accomplishments, the hardships, the difficulties, the achievements, it shows up in who we are. And I know that Simon Sinek talks about your why, and that's important. Your why. Why do you do what you do? But I take it a step back and say, who are you? What is your who? Because your who informs your why. And your who has to do with that origin story. Like just like the questions you've been asking me. Where did you come from? What's a highlight in your life? What are the values that you hold dear? And how do those show up in the work that you do? So the origin story is the work that I do now. It's based on that sense of wanting to help others be seen, heard, understood, and listened to.
Mhm.
And what's really key there is our voice. We each have a very unique, individual, once in the history of time voice.
Mhm.
And when we voice our story, our ideas, those are acts of creation. And when we have the courage to use our voice, to speak our mind, to say what we mean and mean what we say, we've taken this bold and beautiful step toward making happen
Mhm.
what we desire.
Mhm.
And so by doing that, by actually stepping outside of your comfort zone and saying, I know what I stand for, I know what I don't stand for, and speaking with intention, then we have the chance to be and do who we are. And so we go back to the power of transformation. And our
Mhm.
work always transforms the lives of those we serve. So when
Mm.
we are doing our work, we are transforming the lives of those we work for, those we serve as well.
Wow, that's beautifully stated.
Thank
So
you.
beautifully stated. And so the question arises for me is what led you to this work? When did you decide and how did you decide one day that I want to help others share their story and to bring more meaning to it?
When? When? Okay, so I was working as a storyteller and storytelling instructor
Mm.
decades ago. And in my class, and it was a university class, and into my class walked, well, the students, because this was the first time that they had ever been offered a storytelling course, and it was a semester long.
Mhm.
Into my course walked two trial attorneys. Now, these are seasoned attorneys. They are supposed to show up in court and argue the case of their plaintiff, the injured party, to a judge and a jury. And they were there because they felt that they were doing a disservice, an injustice to their clients. And that somehow, if they could figure out how to better tell their client's story, they would have a better chance at being successful in trial. And I don't mean lying or any of that spin that people, say that lawyers do. I don't mean that at all. I mean that finding a heartfelt way to tell that story using the facts, but also being able to connect with the stories that are in the jury's lives, in the lives of the jurors. And when I started working with them, one of the attorneys said, this is like doing an archaeological dig on ourselves. So when people hear me say archaeological dig, that's how you get to the past civilization of your story. It came from somebody else. He and I ended up writing a magazine article about it. But be that as it may, because the work of being able to hear, understand, and share the plaintiff's story starts with the lawyer himself, herself. They have to understand their who, they have to understand how come they became a litigator, and then they have to understand exactly what is their plaintiff client going through. So I think it actually, if I had to pick a moment in time, that would have been the start of it. Because once I started working with those attorneys, they had other attorneys. And then I became a litigation consultant. And so I had a practice for a dozen years. And what I did was helped lawyers, litigators who worked only for plaintiffs, the injured party.
Okay.
And I help, because the defense, they got a lot of help. The plaintiffs, not so much. Not so
I
much.
never considered that, but you're right. In a lot of ways, I never considered that. I love law. I was going to go to law school at one point, changed my mind, but I still love law to this day, and I never thought about it like that.
Well, tell me what it is that you love about it, because that's not something one hears often.
I just like how the legal system operates. And I'm not saying that it operates well in all cases, but what I like about the law is, first of all, in these United States, I find that depending on where you live, everything is not necessarily united in the law.
Correct.
And I also just love the way that you do have a right in this country to a right, to a trial and, all of that. But in terms of law, I just like how the different types of law work in connection to the overall system as a whole. It's hard to kind of put into words, but ever since I was young, I just liked looking at court TV, and I liked looking at different parts of it. And I was going to do education attorney and educational law, whole other story based on why I chose not to actually do that. But to this day, I just still enjoy reading about court cases, and not even necessarily serious ones in terms of manslaughter or murder, but it can be something as, simple as a case where a person is suing their neighbor because they built a fence over their yard, or it can be about contracts. It's just that law is so multifaceted to me, and I never really saw the connection between storytelling and law, and how it's so important for attorneys to really almost in a way get that origin story first of their plaintiff or the person they are representing prior to everything else taking place. You've just gotten me to have almost like an aha moment that I never realized before. And that kind of leads me to my next question. And that question is, what role does storytelling actually play when it comes to fostering or creating empathy and understanding? And how can we use our personal narratives to even create a positive change in our world?
Great question. I think you must be batting 1,000 now. Um,
It's just
story.
so much in you. I said, okay, I had to kind of, scaffold these questions, but I said she's ready for those higher level thinking questions.
I hope so.
Yes, you
Okay.
are.
So, story, connection, shifting attitudes, behaviors, and cultures. We'll kind of
Mhm.
go at it that way. Does that cover your question?
Yeah,
Story,
like
connection.
how people hear stories all the time of a person's lives, things of that nature. But specifically, how does storytelling, what role does it play when it comes to fostering and or creating empathy and understanding? And we need more of that. Personally, I think we need more of that in our world now. But I think sometimes people take their stories for granted and don't think they have a story to share. But I think everybody has a story to share, has something, right? So how exactly can our stories create empathy, understanding in order to promote a positive change in our world?
Got it.
Mhm.
So, the way in which story works, very generally, I'm not going to give you the semester class, but the way it in which it works is that it touches the listener's emotions,
Mhm.
senses, feelings, memories.
Mm.
So when I'm telling a story to you, we shared the Pippi Longstocking story, and right away there was a connection because of the themes that we were talking about, the universal truths of independence and whatnot. And so that's the way story works. That the storyteller, and the story listener are all working together in a unit. And it is that engaged connection that goes back and forth, that heartfelt story that
Mhm.
people are feeling inside. So that when we share our story about a particular event, and so I'm sharing the story about the potty training and what it was like, and the emphasis or the role that that played in my life, someone else hearing that story is actually going back in their imagination and remembering a time when they were similarly independent or trying to do it their own way. So we're connecting in ways that are unsaid, sometimes unsaid, but also felt. So it's being said, but it's also being felt at the same time.
Mm.
The place that I begin is with the sorcery of stories. I call that the magic part of stories
Ooh.
because we are connected with the way in which stories happen to us. We are always talking in narrative, we are always talking in metaphor. This is like that is. From the very earliest time, we came home from school and someone said, "What happened to you today?" And we're telling a story all
Mhm.
the time, all the time, all the time. So, by using our stories to help shift attitudes and behaviors, we are looking at something that we learned. How did I overcome my righteous, opinionated, judgmental self to become
Mm.
empathetic, understanding of, and compassionate toward another? See, we're right back to ourselves, our who, our archaeological dig on our story.
That's
That was
right.
the change that the lawyers were talking about. Now that I can see something in myself, I can see it in the other. So it starts with our own, overcoming our lesser angels, as
Mhm.
it were, and becoming a better human being, and then turning that understanding of humanity, shining that light on the next person. So I'll ask you a question.
Mhm.
What do you think is the most important skill? What do you think the most important skill of a storyteller is?
Ooh, dang, Diane, I wasn't prepared for this. The greatest important skill of a storyteller. maybe the delivery of it?
That's a great answer. And I will jump to the end and say, believe it or not, it's what you've been doing. It's listening. The most important
Oh.
skill a storyteller has, believe it or not, is listening. Because as we're telling the story, we are listening with our body, we are listening with our eyes, we're listening to see, listening in quotes, to see
Hmm.
if our listeners are picking up the little cookie crumbs that we're dropping in the forest and coming up with us. Are they getting the story? Are they with me in the story? The same thing happens when we are using our stories to shift attitudes, behaviors, dare I say, cultures.
Mm-hmm.
We are listening to see if the listener is with us. And then we are listening their story out of them. How are you like me? How is your experience like my experience? Because the one thing that I will say that is universal, when we tell a story and someone listens to a story, there is that sense of, what? You too? I thought I was the only one.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not. And the other thing is, when we hear a story, we are to raise our eyes to whomever our God is and say, why did you send that story to me
Mm.
at this time? And the last thing I'll say about this is that I believe that stories are very organic. They want to be heard. And so the question that we're asking ourselves is, what is the story that I know about myself that needs to be said, that needs to be heard so that I can help someone else? And what is the story I want to listen out of them so that they know they are seen, heard, understood, and listened to? And the last thing I'll say, because you
Mhm.
mentioned this, there
Yes.
is a lot of division in the world. When we are having a disagreement with someone, our views are different. They say black, I say white, they say red, I say blue, whatever. If we can find the awareness in ourselves to know that we're not disagreeing with the person, we're
Mm.
disagreeing with their viewpoint, their perspective. Okay, that's all right. However, where can we find common ground between the two stories? And once we find common ground between the two stories, what can we build on? And that's the connecting part.
Mm.
That is the invitation to someone that says, I don't necessarily agree with your point of view, but I understand what you're saying to me. And I want to take what you're saying to me, find common ground, and see if we can knit together a third story that takes my story, your story, and grows something good out of what could be a disagreement. Does that, how does that land on you? I guess that's what they
That
say.
lands well on me because what came to mind, I'm a musical person too, and a song just popped in my mind hearing that, and it was really the song from the 1980s, We Are the World, where
Yes,
everybody came together in unity
yes,
for a common cause despite
yes.
the differences. I'm hearing that in the background from what you said, because it does get me to think about if we could just pause for a moment and
Mhm.
just listen, and
Yes.
we can understand. Now, for a person who's experienced many challenges in their life, and they may have a story to share, but not exactly sure how to rewrite their narrative. Diane, would you briefly just tell us, how did you find the strength to rewrite your narrative after experiencing challenging life experiences?
Well, I was lucky in that I was able to find good counselors, people that could
Mm.
listen the story out of me. And so with that help, I was able to, as they say, do the work,
Mhm.
do the work on the story and sort out where I might have been at fault in something and can
Mm.
change that, and where I wasn't and shouldn't be taking the blame for
Mhm.
that. So doing the work on our story comes first. And the reason that that's important is because when we decide to intentionally share an aspect of our story, and we have to ask ourselves, how come and to whom and for what
Mhm.
purpose, then we
Mhm.
want to make sure that our listeners don't feel like they have to reach out and catch us, that
Mhm.
that person's solid in what they're saying. So what that goes to is the work of vulnerability. We all have, shadow sides, and the question becomes, what of my story is important for someone else to hear? I'm not saying that we just got to puke on the page and hang out all the, the dirty laundry, but there are times when what we've overcome is important for us to say, because it's the way of saying, this is my story, this is what I've accomplished.
Mhm.
And it's important for someone else to hear. What?
Mhm.
You too? Thought I was the only one. Mm-mm.
Wow. And when it comes to that sharing of stories, say if a person comes to you and they want to share that story, but frankly, they're scared and they're afraid of that vulnerability. What are some strategies that a person could use to begin to overcome some of that fear and embrace their own personal power when it comes to their stories being shared?
Well, first of all, what I offer is a safe place.
Mhm.
So I start with the belief that you know the story you want to tell. You might need some help in finding the words that you don't think you have, but you really do.
Mm.
And so the story, the sitting there and holding the story, you see me holding a circle. It's like you're sitting inside a circle of safety.
Mhm.
It's also recognizing that a story is a narrative. It can be rewritten. And by facing where we might have created a problem,
Mhm.
or where someone might have created a problem against us, is the first step of saying, okay, there's a part I played in this, and there's a part that someone else played in this. I can't make that person different,
Mhm.
but I can make myself different. I can do that. And I think that's one of the most important steps of moving into looking at some of the challenges in your story and saying, okay, this is where I screwed up. You mess up, you fess up, and now I can begin with help to rewrite that narrative. And I suggest seeking out help, whether it's wherever you go for wherever you go for help,
Mhm.
whether it's a counselor or a church person, start there and start with the awareness that when you begin to unravel a story that feels difficult, you'll begin to see that it's only a story. You can unravel it, you can rewrite it.
And one of my favorite quotes from you that you said to me when we first met, and you also brought it up here, is that you said to me one point, my job is to help you find the words you didn't know you had, but you have.
That's right.
That to me is so
That's right.
profound. And so I know that we don't have a lot of time left, but Diane, was there ever a point in your life when you didn't think you had the words that you have now? And what was it that catapulted you to finding those words and being able to share those words with others?
We could talk all day. Great question. So I've shared before, and I think I've mentioned it to you before, that I'm an incest survivor. And
Mhm.
so, like many, as a child, you want to say something, but you don't have the words to say it. Or you do say something and someone says, that didn't happen. You are a liar. And
Mm.
so gradually you begin to not trust your words, your intuition, your experiences, and you begin to get really small. It's not gone away. The voice has not gone away. It's just a lot smaller. Where did it begin to get bigger for me? I will tell you this. I hadn't thought about it to this moment, but when I was in law school, there is a competition called moot court, and it's you do that in your first year, and it's you're paired up with another student. You're given a case that is going on to the appellate court. So it's been tried in the lower courts. It's going on to the appellate court, and all through the course of that year, you are working with your partner on making arguments one way or the other. That takes you to the very end where you're finally in competition in front of panels of attorneys who are acting as judges or eventually really judges. And there was something about that process, something about that organized process, something about that process that said, this is your chance. I mean, you're arguing. And even though it was an exercise, it was an exercise that I could really get involved in. Like, all right, now I know what to say, how to say it. I'm acting on behalf of someone else because this was a case involving someone else. And I will tell you that on the very last day, I was arguing against a student who was an older student, and he had been a pastor, a church pastor. Talk about somebody that could talk, right? And we were in front of a panel of 5 sitting Supreme Court chief justices from different states, so the state of Pennsylvania and Idaho. Yes, yes. And so we would each argue. There was the appellant side, the appellee side. We would each argue. And then the judges would ask us questions. And then we had to reverse roles, meaning you can't just argue the side that you're familiar with. You had to argue the other side. And then the judges would ask you questions again. I won. Ooh. And I have to say,
yes.
I've got a picture of myself in a pinstripe suit and a perm. But I think it was that moment. And I've got the 5 justices behind me in their black robes.
I love it.
But I think it was at that moment.
That is definitely impressive. Yes.
That was it. That was the place where I could say, you know what? Maybe there is something here. And it grew from there with the opportunities that came my way.
You have, girl, yes, we could talk all day. You know that we could. I so love you. We could talk all day about this. That is so wonderful. And through all of this, I just hear such empowerment. And what is a piece of wise counsel? I don't like to say advice, but a piece of wisdom that you could share specifically with women. Now, I know I have men listeners and I love men, but in terms of women specifically, it's been my experience and in just reading certain things is that women, we tend to apologize more. We tend to silence our voices and we apologize for things that we don't even need to apologize for. And so my question to you is, what is a piece of wise counsel or advice that you like to share with women who are on a journey of self-discovery, self-empowerment, and want to begin sharing their narrative and their story? What can you say to them?
Keep going. You have a voice. There will be no other voice like yours in the whole of creation. So begin to find the courage to say what you mean and mean what you say, because those are acts of creation, regardless of whether you say them in your family, in your community, in your school, in your church, in your job, whatever. I also say that if you're just at that place of, I'm not really sure about how to step out with my voice, take the step that's right in front of you. Find one moment in time to speak up. If you scramble your words in an office setting, trying to make your thoughts clear, get your idea across, practice jotting down a few things so that you've got an anchor there. Deliver those thoughts with intention and end with a solid conclusion. If you are interested in exploring more, you don't cross the ocean by standing on the shore. If you want to know what you're capable of doing, you have to step out yourself. There's a song, we've been talking about stuff in the past. Give me one moment in time where I can be more than I thought I would be. That moment we have to give to ourselves.
Mhm.
Nobody is going to give it to us. And if
Yes.
you want to take one word out of your vocabulary, it is sorry. If there are occasions where you have to apologize, then you can say that I apologize for. But
Mhm.
otherwise, you can always say, excuse me, and that's
Yes.
enough.
Oh my
Excuse me is
gosh.
enough. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
My
Yep.
sister listens faithfully to my podcast, and that is one thing that she is the queen of. And she has gently corrected people who say that where we might be in a grocery store and a person needs to get to something in the aisle and they sound scared and say, I'm sorry. And my sister has turned to them and say, what are you sorry about? You didn't do anything to hurt
That's
me.
right.
They
Right.
stop and pause and say, oh, well, I need to get that. And my sister has said, well, all you have to do is say, excuse me, you
Excuse
aren't
me.
causing trouble for me. And the person will stop and pause and say, oh, you're right. Excuse me. I've seen it happen more than once. It's in the little
It's
things where
great.
we say,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Like, no, if you need to get a loaf of bread, it's
Yeah.
fine. Just say, excuse
Yes.
me. I understand
Yes.
that.
That's
Wow.
clear. Yes.
Um, I know that you have, of course, confidentiality between clients, so you can keep this general, but is there a story that comes to mind of a woman that you've worked with who experienced a significant transformation and a significant change when she clarified her narrative and decided to amplify her story and share it with others? Have you seen a transformation happen? And could you just give us a brief example in general of how that person was when they started working with you by the time that process was over? Did you see some type of a change in them or shift?
Yes. I always do. I
Mhm.
always do. And it's the most exciting thing because it's like having a kid come home from school and go, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? I got a pumpkin on my paper. Woo, woo, woo. You know? Yes, yes, there is always, 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 as you said earlier, this aha moment, this sense of delight, and hoping that you would ask me a question like this. I
Mhm.
grabbed something. There was a woman who came to me because she had an idea for a keynote. And she wasn't sure about the idea. She needed to clarify the ideas. She needed to figure out how to amplify the message. Like so many people, she was afraid of public speaking. Okay, so we got this big project. So here's what she said when we were done. She said, Diane knew that I needed someone to hold supportive, non judgmental, but always very disciplined space to help me find the words. Throughout our time working together, I learned how to further develop my creative process, reframe negative self talk and self doubt, and turn it into self love. These are her words. Create a more consistent writing practice and how to work with my inner critics so they were no longer stopping me. Two more points. Gained insight into my own unique brilliance and how to use it for my life and creations. And above all, I learned that I loved writing. And this newfound discovery resulted in my biggest dream of all being made real. And she took that keynote and she went on and she delivered it. And then she wrote a book.
Oh, that just gave me chills. It
I know, me
literally just
too.
gave me chills. Oh, wow. That is
Yeah.
so, oh my gosh, that is
Yeah.
everything. And I'll just chime in to say to anybody listening, it's never too late for you to share your story. As long as you
That's
have
right.
breath and you are
That's right.
still living on this side, you can share your story. It doesn't matter how old you
No,
are, because sometimes people think, I'm old or I'm
no.
older, or
Mm-mm.
even people who are younger who might be 20s, 30s, or even 40s who say, well, I haven't really done a lot with my life. It doesn't matter. You don't have to
Mm-mm.
be famous. You don't have to be well
Mm-mm.
known. You still have
Mm-mm.
something significant
Yeah.
to offer.
Yeah.
Diane, what do you love most about the work that you do?
It's what we were talking about earlier, that sense of glee
Mm,
and delight that comes from the clients, from the women that I work with, because I don't think they expect the the archaeological dig work, the sense of pushing back on the inner critics, the
mhm,
realization that they are bold and brilliant and beautiful and have things to create and to offer. It's that. I mean, you can say, yeah, I helped somebody with a keynote. That's just the beginning. That's just the open door part. The rest is what you heard her describe about herself. And if I can be of use to a woman to arrive at that place, imagine the effect, the transformative effect, the power of her transformation she
mm,
will have on others that she serves. So it can only go out
mhm,
from there. And I will echo what you said. We need the voices of the young people to show us the way. We need the voices of the elders to
mhm,
show us how it's been and what they still see. And so, uh, yes,
mhm.
regardless, it's a story
And
that needs to be
mhm.
heard.
And my last question for you prior to getting your contact info is, what have you learned most about yourself in being a story origin or origin story co-creator? What have you learned most about yourself?
That's a brilliant question. I think it goes hand in glove with the podcasting work that I do, which is I feel like I'm building my life in public. And when I work with someone, they are teaching me. They're
Mhm,
helping me pull back layers of myself. They're helping me find a deeper level of awareness, empathy,
mhm, mhm,
compassion, and also, delight. We get so caught up in the work of things. I'm not a person that goes easily to joy and happiness and all that stuff. I'm a little bit more, centered on that, and yet I reach for these places of joy, of what I call deliciousness, because that is so nourishing. That is so nourishing for us and for the world. So
mm.
each one teach one, each one lift one. That's how we roll here.
Yes, indeed. Diane, I know that people are going to want to learn more about you, want to hear more interviews, or even say, I'm ready to tell my story. How can someone connect with you, Diane?
There's a couple of ways. I'm on LinkedIn, so that's a really easy way to get a hold of me. My website is called Quarter Moon Story Arts, and there's lots of information on there. You can reach out to me at info@quartermoonstoryarts.net, and I will happily write back to you. But I think the most important thing that I offer is something that no one else really does, and that is a discovery conversation. And I know it's 45 minutes long, which might sound a little bit daunting to people, but it's a chance to get to know each other, to start to flesh out what your project might be, hear the beginning parts of your story, see what it is that you want to do and be. And so that's free. And I offer that. It's a good value. It's a really good value, but I offer that to people, no sales, no obligations. Just sign up on the website and let's hear what you want to offer to the world.
Beautifully, beautifully stated. Everything has been beautifully stated, and it is such an honor to be in
Thank
your
you.
presence. I am so glad that we've connected.
Thank you.
And I thank you for taking time to be a part of the Power Transformation podcast. And of course, this is not the end of our collaboration. But again, Diane, thank you for taking time and being on West Coast time, and I'm on the East Coast. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you again for
Oh,
gracing us with your presence.
I could not have done it without you. And if you ever get out to the great state of Washington, my door is open because we are sisters from different misters. So there
Mhm.
will be pie and coffee waiting on the table for you.
And I will take you up on that offer.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
What an honor it has been to have Diane on the Power Transformation Podcast. And as our affirmation today speaks on, and we're going to say it as we close out, everybody has a story to share, and you are created to just do unbelievable things. So I thank Diane from the bottom of my heart for gracing us today with her presence. And I encourage you to share this episode with others also and connect with Diane if you want her to help you. Let's go ahead and close out with our affirmation. I'll say it once and you repeat it. My voice is powerful, and because of that, I am created to do great things. If you enjoyed today's show, then you don't want to miss an episode. So follow the Power Transformation Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you usually listen, and remember to rate and review. I also invite you to connect with me on social media at Alethea Felton. That's at ALETHEAFELTON. Until next time, remember to be good to yourself and to others.